Callback demo. This is how we use functions to create a callback, which is to say something that happens when something else happens in a program. In this case, what we're going to do is when the user types a key, we're going to run a function. So if you run this code, first it generates my little hello thing, and then it says press left or right to turn. So if you press the left key, the turtle moves a little bit and turns left, and if you press the right key, the turtle moves a little bit and turns right. And then I've got a last one where if you press the P, give the turtle a push, the turtle just keeps on moving. And you notice that works with the right and the left key. All right, I'm going to stop that now. So how does this work? First of all, this first thing, window equals screen, all the code related to the callbacks is attached to this window object. So all that code is going to start with window dot something. You'll learn more about objects later, but for now, just know that you need this line at the beginning. You could have made this anything, s dot or screen dot. I'm going to use window because it represents the window in my example. So window equals screen. All right. Then the functions that are going to be called when the user does something take no arguments. It says here, take no arguments. And I can call them whatever I want. So I called def head right, right turn 10, forward 5, def head left, left turn 10, forward 5. That makes a lot of sense. I have another one called move yourself. That's what happens when you push it. And that one just moves forward 10 and then calls itself again. We'll come back to that. That's a little complicated in just a minute. All right, and then to set up the key commands, I bundled all these in a setup callbacks function just to be organized. But the gist of how key commands work is that window on key lets you give it a function and a key. So notice I'm not calling the function here. I am giving it the function name. So when I say window.onKey head right, that sort of is the function object and right. If I'd put parentheses here and run my code, the right key won't work. Actually, does nothing work? Nothing works. Because I got a type error on line 38. It said it could not convert undefined or null to an object on line 38. And you might say, well, what on earth is that? Well, remember, if you call a function, it runs the function and then returns a value. So let's go through what I just did wrong. When it set up the callback, it called head right, which meant it came up here and it went right 10 and forward 5. And then it returns a value. All functions return values all the time. In this case, it returns nothing. So it says on the right key, nothing. And that's where we get this type error because it doesn't know what to do with a nothing there. It expects a function there. So when I call window on key and run it, notice it doesn't move at all. Nothing happens, right? Because it's not calling head right. It's saying, here's a function to run when the user presses right. So it's an important difference. When there are parentheses, you're running a function. And this may be the first time that you've seen, other than in a test where I told you to define a function, that we're using a function but we're not running it. So here we're saying on the key, run the function. So we're handing a function called onKey another function, right? So we said onKey head right, right, onKey head left, left, and then we set up your move yourself. Another quick note, I put all these in setup callbacks. This is an example of just using a function for organization. And then here I've got draw welcome screen. That drew the little welcome screen where I said hello students. And then at the very bottom of my code I said draw welcome screen, set up callbacks, main loop needed if you run on your computer. Main loop is actually unnecessary in this replit environment. It runs the main loop automatically, but what main loop does is it says, hey, do all the turtle things, keep the window open, listen for events, all that stuff. If you'd run turtle in a different environment and you didn't put the main loop in, what you would see is it would just bring up the screen, do all this stuff, and then the program would end. It would close. So actually, you may be used to seeing like a main if you've done any C programming. Main loop is a pretty common way to end a program. All right, so this is the kind of program we tend to read backwards. So if I want to understand what happens, runs the main loop. This just says needed if you run on your computer. Set up callbacks, sets up all the callbacks, draw welcome screen, draws the welcome screen. So if I want to see what the callbacks are, here I read backwards. I say, okay, on the right key, head right. Well, what's head right? I scroll up again. This is what I mean by reading backwards, and I read head right. So if I want the turtle to move forward more, I could change those numbers. And now the right turn goes a little further forward each time. Oh, did I just change the turn? Oops, I changed the turn. So the right turn now turns more instead of, oops, I meant to change it. So here, let me run it again. Now the right turn moves further forward than the left turn, right? Yeah, there you go. So you could change those to be whatever you want. All right, another important thing is that the fact that this function is called head right is something I did to make the program clear to me. But it's important you understand there's no magic word here. Okay, so if I typed window on key head back, this will not work. I'm going to get an error, and the error is that head back is not defined because I haven't actually defined a function. It's not like head right and head left were magic words. They were words I defined. So if I want, I can, of course, also make functions that make no sense. So alien blobzoogle could be the name of my function. And again, just like head back, that's going to say, if I run it, it's going to say that's not defined, which you probably expect. Alien blobzoogle is not defined. So what I have to do is come up here and define it. So I could say alien blobzoogle forward 10, right 90, forward 100. All right, so there, I just made a new function. I could call it anything I wanted to, right? And I could put it, back is not a thing, but I'll put it on the up key. So now, oops, hey, wouldn't mind running. There we go. Oops. Now if I press the up key, it's going to do the alien blobzoogle. So left and right work. Up does alien blobzoogle. There we go, and right. So there's nothing magic about these words. You shouldn't name your functions things like alien blobzoogle. You should name your functions things that make sense. But it's important you understand this name is defined here. So when you get a name error, it's telling you you haven't defined it. You define it there. And that's how this works. So head left refers to the function up top. And because this name is referring to something you've defined, you have to define it first, which is why we read our code upside down. Because, in other words, for setup callbacks to work, setup callbacks has to be defined, right? For this code to work, head right has to be defined. Well, where do I define head right? I define it up here. All right, that's been a quick demo. I hope this is helpful.